Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about taking the job you need versus the job you want. In this economy, it's a tough job market right now. As much as you might want to find that perfect role that aligns with your vision, your values, your key motivators, sometimes you just have to take a survival role. And that is completely okay. I want to acknowledge that there is a degree of privilege that comes along with getting that ideal role. We don't always have the luxury of an advanced timeline or, a good padding of savings that we can, get by on while we're looking for that dream role. So let's dig into that a bit today. What's your take on this, Melissa?
Yeah, I think that oftentimes we attach a lot of shame with having to take whether we want to call it a survival role, or even if it's the role that's just, it's not on your path. It's not something that you envisioned, right? So it's looking, let's say, outside of your scope. A lot of people feel that connection of shame or failure with having to take those jobs. But the reality is that a job is a job, and you're going to gain something out of it anyways,
Yeah.
right? So even if it's not that perfect thing, it's perfectly okay to go after those jobs and to take those jobs, which in this market, I will also acknowledge that those jobs can also be very hard to get, the ones that you're not like perfectly aligned for. But
Yeah, that's true. It seems like right now, there used to be a little bit more wiggle room, more flexibility with how, if 70% of the job posting applied to you and experiences you've had and skills you have, then you apply anyways and you stood a good chance at getting the role. But now, it's got to be like 90% of the stuff's got to be there, which is unfortunate. It does make it a lot more difficult to pivot in this type of job market. It's not impossible. It's just there's going to be more challenges, more barriers that you'll have to overcome. But yes, sometimes roles just appear, maybe we get lucky, or maybe we have a referral into something, or we just get this opportunity that's unexpected, not exactly what we had anticipated or planned for. But sometimes they can end up being good roles that we actually really like.
absolutely, they can be fantastic roles because you can still find a spark of something in there somewhere, right? You might have to make that spark happen, or it might still be there, but there's still something in there for you to grow and learn and enjoy what you're doing, right? You just got to be intentional, I think,
Yeah.
about that, and having the optimistic mindset
Mm-hmm.
that it is going to be okay. So even if you're going into it thinking, okay, this is just going to be the temporary job until I find something that is more aligned with what I want to do, um, just that notion of it's not the end of the world and there's nothing wrong with you.
Yeah.
So make the best out of it.
And I mean, all jobs have value,
They do.
right? And I think we need to step away from, looking at certain professions as being more worthy than others, right? We all bring something, we can all bring something special to any role, right? And we can all take pride in any role.
Mhm.
You're so right. It's a lot of it does boil down to mindset.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I think when we think about what we can get out of a role like that is you have to figure out what you want to get out of that role. So if you're going into a role, and whether it's a step down from what you're in, or whether it's in a new industry and a new entire type, sit down and think, what can I get out of this role that is going to help me advance? Is it improving presentation skills? Is it improving speaking skills? Is it having the opportunity to learn some AI stuff? Is it whatever that little thing is? Take advantage of that, lean into it, and shine in that role, and look for those stretch moments, right? Where you think, okay, this is the job in the box, right? Here's some really cool things that's around the outside of that box that maybe if I just ask, maybe if I, talk to my boss and say, hey, I've had this really cool idea of something that we could do to have bigger impact on this, right? Where maybe you can start bringing in some of those skills that you have from your past career, from that path that you want to be on. Bring those skills in and put it into place so that all of a sudden this survival job, or whatever you want to call it, all of a sudden it's it's giving you more of an outlet for what you know that you're good at and what you want to be doing and the things that interest you.
Yeah.
To that you can then in your future job search, you can position this job in a way that maybe you're going to feel more comfortable and confident about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it all, when it comes to that and then how you package that up later, put it
Mhm.
on your resume and talk about it in interviews, it's all about the narrative that you create, right? And trying to find those pieces of alignment where maybe this is not exactly the industry that I had in mind or the role that I really was excited about and targeting, but I still want to get there. In the meantime, what can I do in order to kind of, like you said, get those results, right? That you want to be able to put on your resume and talk about in an interview and demonstrate that you've got these transferable skills and maybe just neutralize the language so that maybe if you're in a different industry now and it's got its own very specific, whether that's acronyms or different priorities or just terms that they use that are slightly different but mean essentially the same thing in other contexts, then you just neutralize the language and kind of frame that experience in a way that's going to be more understandable to a different audience. But then let's say you are in this role and it is in a different industry than what you ideally are targeting. And you're happy enough for now, but you're still very much focused on getting into that other industry or that other role. What are some tips that you would suggest for people in order to cross paths or get on the radar of people that are in your target industry?
That's a great question.
What about, okay, so let's think about like the different avenues, right? Like I think you made a great point about taking on stretch assignments, right? That's still within the same industry, but maybe the skills are more aligned with what you're targeting. So that's a good method for getting the skill, sharpening the right skills. And then maybe having those skills on the resume for when you are job searching or interviewing.
Yeah.
But as far as like getting in front of that audience, what about LinkedIn? Should your LinkedIn be focused on your current role? Or do you want to focus it on your ideal target? I mean, it's a little tricky when you're currently employed, right? You don't want to tip off to your employer that, yeah, I don't care about this job, but I'm itching to get out. So you have to be a bit stealthy.
Yeah.
So that's one area to think about.
I think that comes down to, not necessarily comes down to, but I think that's connected to, have you already established a personal brand for yourself? Have you already built out that you are a subject matter expert in a particular area, or that you're very knowledgeable about an industry, right? Have you already built that out in your brand? And if so, continue talking about that, because that's what people know you for. That's what they're looking to you for, to get that insight, right? Versus if you haven't built that brand for yourself, which if you need help with that, she can help. Which, if you haven't, then like kind of look at the balance then. So consider, maybe instead of thinking about industry versus industry, think of it, like you said, around the skill set, right? So what are the skills that you have and the skills that maybe you're developing in this new role? What are some of those things that you can talk about where it's going to be applicable in either place? Or what are some of the challenges and the problems that these two industries share, that you can talk about, right? Because then it's hitting both of those audiences.
Exactly. Yes. And you can be more covert.
Yes, exactly.
In your thought leadership and not get necessarily flagged by your boss for trying to, transition into something else.
Yeah.
I actually had a really good aha moment with one of my clients actually earlier this week where he hasn't been on the job market in quite a while. His entire career has been in brick manufacturing, right? Which is a very specific type of manufacturing with kilns. And I learned a lot about it through talking to him, the different dyes they use in order to color the bricks. I didn't even realize there were dye in bricks. That's how out of touch I am on that topic. Anywho, so there's not a lot of brick manufacturers in the area where he lives. And so we have to think about, okay, how can you expand your job search to other manufacturing contexts? And he was very tunnel visioned on, oh, I'm only an expert in this area. He was contemplating applying to a concrete manufacturing place. And I said, well, maybe you can actually leverage your experience working in brick manufacturing, bring in that new perspective to, let's say, concrete or whatever new manufacturing context that is, right? Bring in that perspective that you've had from what you've seen working in the brick world, bring it into that new environment. Because sometimes when you can bring in a fresh perspective, it can lead to good changes where, hey, we did it this way in the brick world, and that might actually work here too. Because when everyone comes from the same background, they tend to look at the problems in the same way. And so I think if you're strategic in the way that you market yourself, you can actually leverage that, what seems like unrelevant experience, you can leverage that as a strength and say, hey, I can come in here, I can see things with fresh eyes. Maybe we make a few strategic changes based on, some other methods from other industries, and that actually can push us forward, make us more productive, make the quality better, whatever the case might be. And when I was talking to him about this, he actually was like, you know what? I saw that firsthand when I was working in brick manufacturing, because we would bring in workers who came from other industries, and they actually had really great recommendations. And so once he took a step back and thought about how it had applied in his previous career, how he'd seen it firsthand, then he was like, you're right, I can apply that to myself as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, when we can step back and come up with that example ourselves, then it seems so much more achievable. Or if you can think of someone that that you saw them go through this process of, they're working over here and suddenly, they're out of work and they have to try something new, and they are trying something new and it's different and it's not related at all or seemingly unrelated to what they're doing, and you saw them being successful in it, then I think that helps to, you can find that inspiration to keep doing it yourself. But to your point about bringing that outside perspective, I've at my work, I've had to do a lot of stories recently on our employees who are coming from different industries into our industry and talking about those transferable skills. So how is it from their past background? How can they pick out their particular skills from something drastically different to fit into what they're doing now? And it's so interesting to walk through it with them and hear from them, to say, well, now I get to see how that matters. Now I get to see where that experience really makes me do my job better in this role.
Yeah, I think we're often too close to what we do to see the broader impact, right? And especially because change doesn't happen instantly, right? It happens gradually. And so when it's your typical job, you're like, hey, I do this every day, and it's gradually changing, you don't necessarily notice when the change happens and how that impacts other people. So taking that step back is, I think, important. No matter what your situation is, taking a step back and kind of evaluating what you've been doing in your career, and even checking in with your colleagues to be like, hey, like, what do you appreciate about me? What are some things you come to me for help and support about, can give you good insights into your unique operational style and how that might be applicable across different industries, right?
Exactly. Yeah, actually, I love that peer feedback mechanism, getting that perspective from other people on what they value about you, because often we don't see those things in ourselves, right? So then when we're in that job that we don't want to be in, but we're there because we have to be there, getting that feedback from people on what they see your strengths and what they see what your value is in an organization, it can propel you forward. It can make you feel a little bit better about being in the job that you're in, but can also help you understand, again, to then make that leap back out of that job and back towards where you want to be. It can help you then identify, well, maybe what are some of those key areas that I should focus on from this job that I can use to position myself.
Yeah, and I think taking ownership of it, right? Even if it's a job you're not really too gung-ho about, taking that step back, identifying, some of the skills that you're leveraging or the approaches that you've taken or the new perspectives you've developed, that can make you feel more confident when you do go out into the world, and maybe maybe you try to hit up some networking events or industry events where you can meet people who are in the industry or the type of work that you're targeting. Now you can feel more confident when you go into those conversations, because I mean, I've been there myself, right? When I feel insecure about something, I shrink myself, I downplay it, I don't want to talk about it. But if you don't believe in yourself, then why would a future employer,
Yeah.
right? Or potentially somebody who is on the team that you would want to be a part of. They don't want to vouch for you necessarily if you are shrinking yourself and making it so, they're questioning if you actually do have the right skills and capabilities. And I mean, people are compassionate and do have empathy. And so we've all been there. And I think we can recognize that in others when sometimes your light's just been dimmed a little and you just need a little bit of someone to help you brighten it.
Mm-hmm.
And those people are out there, they exist, and they're extremely helpful. And when they do give you these pieces of advice and you change the way you present yourself, it makes a huge difference. It's hard to sometimes move past that. But once you do change the way you show up and you take ownership of, yeah, this is where I'm working right now.
Mm-hmm.
And here's what's working. Here's what's great about it. And here's how I'm, going to be able to take that experience and bring it into this new role and crush it. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a really good spot to wrap that up on that positive note is, your mindset. That's really what it's come down to. So we are very excited about your career problems.
If you're interested in being part of an episode of Careers Unfiltered, you can head to brightsidecareers.ca/podcast. There's a short form where you can share a question, career dilemma, or topic you'd like us to explore. And let us know if you'd be open to a future call-in conversation. We're looking forward to hearing from you.